with the Tico 4 Pro at Cherry Shell Harbour.
Welcome to Saturday League Kickoff.
Hello and welcome to Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler here for another week, and just when we thought the game of rugby league couldn't come up with a big enough headline, well, we were able to squeeze a little bit more juice out this week. Welcome to all our Fox League viewers and also our listeners through the SEN network, this great collaboration between Fox League and SEN. Very exciting for you, the listener and the viewer, because you get to engage with the show live, whether you want to give us a call, 1300 01 1170, or if you want to text us also, 0457 736 736. Get your opinions in throughout the show as well. Now, he's with me every Saturday, and Andrew Webster, what a week to be a Manly fan or a journo.
Exactly. Firstly, congratulations on getting my name right, because I know it's a name that you trip up on now and then. No swearing this week, Sats. We've got a cake of soap under here just in case you can't get it. That was it has been a big week in rugby league. When isn't it a big week in rugby league? But you don't have a player of Daly Cherry-Evans' standard very often making the announcement that he did, nor do you see the club counter offering live on TV like they did on NRL 360. It's been a wacky week, but I'm glad we got to the footy. The footy the last couple of days has been great, and I particularly think the Friday night games, we've been blessed here on Saturday League Kickoff. The Friday night games since we've been on air have been sensational. I personally take much of the credit for it. Well, you should take a little bit too.
It's not blessed if you're a Roosters fan last night. If you're a Dolphins fan, definitely not, because coming up on the show, we are going to look at the Friday night review. Broncos coach, he's not only one of the great coaches of the game, especially at the elite level and getting success, but he's also one of the great guys off the field. Michael Maguire, Broncos coach, is going to join us live as well. Also, we're going to look at the Panthers versus the Rabbitohs. Great upset by the Rabbitohs on Thursday night, 28 points to 18. But also the big news of the week, which of course is Daly Cherry-Evans. We've got 4 or 5 days that are behind us now. We've been able to get a little bit more of a clearer picture, we think.
Yeah.
What might not have happened.
To be honest, well, let's discuss that, but I'm really keen to discuss and also get your opinions out there, what you think this might mean for Manly's season, starting with Parramatta on Sunday, at 4 Pines Park.
That's going to be interesting, and I've said this throughout the week. How are the fans going to respond on Sunday? I think there'll be a small faction that will be a little bit dirty at their captain that's been there the last 16 seasons. There'll also be there'll be a part of the crowd that I think will be really disappointed in the Manly management and owners as well. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. I hope it doesn't divide the fans anyway. I hope it doesn't divide the playing group. But you're going to touch on that a little bit later.
I'm very interested to see how his teammates respond to the news when they take on Para tomorrow.
But first, like we do each and every week, the Saturday Spotlight.
The Spotlight.
What do you focus on, Webby?
Reece Walsh. Reece is the word.
I can
exclusively reveal. No, I thought he's a 22-year-old kid,
Yep.
and I think he gets far too much criticism. That's what goes with being a talented and talented superstar like he is. But I think some of the criticism of his game in the last few weeks has been far overblown, and against the Dolphins, he was far more controlled. He still had some glimpses of incredible, both his footwork and his hands, but it was a very mature fullback performance from Reece Walsh. So he is my Saturday spotlight.
You know, it's interesting, as fullbacks and halfbacks, we expect them to come up with the big plays. But it's the big plays he didn't come up with last night, which has impressed us the most.
That's right. That said, though, sorry.
Yeah, keep going.
Well, that said, I know Cobbo was out when we looked at the replays, but that passage of play where Walsh beat 2 within his end goal and then passed to, I think it was Arthurs who got out. That was in the wet. So much for wet weather football, but that, he had on both sides of his game. I thought he was sensational last night. So well done to you, Reece.
Yeah, good stuff, and that's the reason why we're talking to Michael Maguire as well. One, they're going well, but two, it's the art of coaching. When you got your team, you've coached them well, you've prepared them really well. It gives you confidence to do those sorts of things. The teams that aren't confident, the players that aren't confident about what they've got to do, what their job is, they don't try those plays.
No.
So it's good. It's exciting to see. My Saturday spotlight now. Bear with me here, listeners, viewers on Fox League and SEM. The Immortal, the eighth immortal, Joey Johns, came out throughout the week and said, guys, I want to see a 5-point try if you score a try from inside your 40. Coming off your try line to the 40-metre line, if you show a bit of an expansive mind and score a try from inside your 40, 5-point try. I love it.
I like it. But you know what? I'd make it 6.
Okay.
We don't want to be too much like rugby union.
True.
But I think 6 to make it more of an incentive.
Yeah.
But don't you? But like you go back and watch old games, particularly from the 90s, particularly those old Canberra, Brisbane teams, even Penrith, those sides, they'd attack from a scrum 20 metres out from their own line.
Yeah.
Which you don't see that really anymore at all, do you?
No, you don't. You don't. But it's a game grand final we never got to see, did we? Was the Canberra Raiders up against the Brisbane Broncos. It was going to happen in '93. They're heading towards the pinnacle of the game, both of them meeting. But remember Ricky Stewart, he broke his ankle against Parramatta, and I think they were winning by 50 at the stage.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
They were never the same. I think Trevor Shadell, Steve Stone went in as the replacement.
I'm a Dragons guy. Do we really have to bring up, Broncos?
Oh, 93, yeah, exactly.
Back to back premierships. Very hard.
So you can join us anytime on the show. Give us a call, 1300 01 1170, or if you want to send us a text, 0457 736 736, like some have already. Manly will beat Para by 40 plus, Andrew said. Well, remains to be seen. Hey, let's get into the show and let's have a look at the Friday night results. The Broncos 20 defeating the Dolphins 12. It's the third win of the season for the Broncos. I've got to say, I thought they looked really impressive, especially in those conditions, because they are a quick team. They like to use the ball and play that exciting, unpredictable rugby league at times. But the wet, always brings everyone back to the field a little bit. But they were really impressive. The Dolphins, unfortunately, 4 straight losses to start the season, Webby.
Yeah, unfortunately, they had the better of it in the first sort of 10 to 15, didn't they? And I thought, this is going to be a real contest. It was in the end. It was a real arm wrestle in many ways. I love how this Battle of Brisbane has evolved in just, this is the third season of it. It's really good for the game and it's great for Brisbane. I thought Katoni Staggs was great too last night. That try just before half time, he's been out for three games. He's about to seal a new contract with the club, and he's I don't want to start Origin talk too early, but he's got to be, if he keeps playing like he did last night, he's going to be certainly in calculations for Laurie Daly in a few weeks' time.
Do you know what? I find the Broncos sometimes they seem to go side to side, and Katoni Staggs is that guy that just straightens everything.
Yeah.
He's aggressive, he's physical. I know that if you're the opposite centre, and I have spoken to some current centres that play against him, even back rows that have to run sort of at the halfback 5'8", they're always looking to see where Katoni is, because he's got that ability just to be really physical. So his addition was great for the Broncos. I thought Payne Haas again was his second stint, especially when he came off the bench. It's interesting. It feels as though Michael Maguire, he left him off for a longer period this time, and I think that's due to maybe the conditions, heavy on the legs, so he left him off a lot longer. When he came back on, his second stanza was great. So it'd be interesting to ask Madge about why he kept him off for so long.
He's a monster.
Yeah.
After he hits the line, he just seems to carry three defenders with him for about 10, 15 metres.
Yeah.
And I also thought Pat Carrigan was great too last night. Pulled off some absolute clanging tackles on, I think, Tom Gilbert.
Tom Gilbert, yeah.
He'd be feeling some Carrigan bruises today. So it was great performance from the Broncos forwards as well.
And one of the players that when the teams were announced in round one, we thought, well, it's probably going to be Dean Mariner and Katoni Staggs. And then Gemmet Shibasaki, who has had a few starts in the NRL. I've always thought he's a very good player, but he's never been able to nail down a starting position week in, week out. And, every player has a maturity date. They get to a stage in their life, whatever age it may be, that it just makes sense. They turn the switch on and they become this very useful player. And Gemmet Shibasaki, well, he got I'm led to believe the award last night, the medal last night, the Battle of Brisbane award last night, which is awarded between the Dolphins and Brisbane. So they leave Dean Mariner out. Gemmet Shibasaki keeps his position. Outstanding, powerful runner.
I know he's 27, but he's a bit of a journeyman.
Yeah.
He's shifted around a fair bit, and only on train and trial contracts the last few deals that he's had, or some of the last few deals that he's had. So for him to come out and have a performance like that, like he was unstoppable.
Yeah,
he was putting himself in the right spots all game. So well done to him.
Because I swore last week, I'll be really careful with this name. Ben Hunt, outstanding. Adam Reynolds, their kicking games in the wet is what beats teams. The kicking games.
He's playing the house down.
Yeah.
Reno. His kicking game is just as good as it's ever been.
And the kid from Toowoomba, Corey Pakes, who was great last year in Queensland Cup, Host Plus Cup, has been outstanding, winning the number 9 jersey.
Well, remember how the Broncos, 5-6 years ago, maybe a bit longer, had all these great halves coming through, and he was one of them.
Yeah.
And they've sort of, and him and Dearden were earmarked as two of the best sort of halves coming through. So they lost Dearden, couldn't make the most of his ability, and he went on to bigger and better things at the Cows. But it's good to see Corey, owning that number 9 jumper.
Yeah, I remember talking to him as a 16-year-old kid. I was doing a bit of work for an NRL club, just some recruiting, and I tried to get him to a club. It was South Sydney. I was trying to get him to South Sydney, and he's talking to his dad, and he said, "No, if this kid's going to play first grade, it's
good to see him
wants to
going
play
well
at the Brisbane Broncos." So it's good for like you said, it's great.
You couldn't land him.
Couldn't land him. Good morning, man. Does the start of the season just show how good a coach Wayne Bennett is? South up and about. Dolphins can't buy a win. Matty Guyatt, SEN's third best golfer.
I think that there's certainly a merit in it, and I don't think it's a sinister thing from Wayne. I just think if you take one of the greatest coaches of all time out of any club, it's going to leave a hole, and it takes it's a bit hard to replace that voice in the dressing room. But Christian Wolf, he seems like a very solid coach.
He's a good coach.
Yeah, he's a
tremendous guy as well. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, I've never really had much to do with him, but I just I thought he was the way that he handled questions about some of the dubious decisions in the press conference. I thought he was quite respectful of the officials afterwards. So let's just see what happens in his second year.
Now the other Friday night game, of course, was the Roosters up against the Titans. Close your eyes, Roosters fans, if you didn't see the result. 30 points to 12 in favour of the Titans. Titans good, really, really aggressive in their defence, getting up in the face of the Roosters, forcing errors, which brought an intercept and also a pick up a loose ball. AJ Brimson runs the rest of the field. Wasn't great for the Roosters. Hey, before we talk about that game, Trent Robinson, this is what he had to say on the Roosters' recent performances.
I think we were probably mid-60s last week. If it was high 50s there, that's not NRL standard. You're going to create opportunities if you play, and we're going to create those opportunities, but then pressure's a big part of the way that NRL's played, and when you build none, you're not going to get those decision-making sort of errors out of the opposition where you're going to get the tries. We were creating some, but then also giving them a lot of opportunity with our field position through those errors.
So Titans' second straight win. Great for them. Not a great start to the season, the Titans, those first couple of games. But, Desi doing what Desi does with sides. They were one thing about them, without Keanu Kinney, I thought, what's this team going to look like when it comes to just playing that sort of that fast-paced footy through the middle of the field. But then you remember you've got a guy like AJ Brimson who
stepped up, who
plays much the same as they play much the same, both Keanu Kinney and AJ Brimson. So
what is AJ's best position, do you think? It seems to be the conundrum of the NRL at the moment, what you do with AJ.
I think his best position is fullback. But then if you've got another fullback that can't play any other position, AJ's a great 14. Yeah. And I'm sorry to say that, AJ, because NRL players, a lot of them don't like to embrace that 14 position, but they end up sometimes playing more minutes than anyone else.
And in the modern game, that seems to be, and particularly the way that the speed at which it's played now, it's as important as any position.
Yeah, so I think his best position is fullback. It's just unfortunate they've got another really good fullback who can't play another position.
That said, it was a great win by the Titans. At 12-8, you would have thought the Roosters could have gone on with that at home. Yeah. I know they're down on troops, and I know it's a rebuilding phase for that club, but it's at 12-8, and you could see Trent Robinson after the game talk about how he thought they should have iced that game.
Exactly. On the text line 0457 736 736 if you want to get in touch with the show. Doc Lombardi out in Dubbo. Thanks for listening or viewing on Fox League. Great to see the Titans win back-to-back games with Big Tino leading the way. But if ever East needs someone, they have to throw whatever it takes to sign DCE, as their halves were showing up badly last night. They're desperate for direction. Doc Lombardi, this is what I was going to touch on actually when it comes to the Roosters. Really good for 70 or 80 metres from their own try line up the field. Siwa Wong, Nafahu White, Angus Crichton was really good. Victor Radley, unfortunately another another concussion as well. Really good for 80 metres, but then creating any opportunities and then transferring that into points was pretty disappointing.
They seem to have more luck when they were running the ball out from their own from their own half. That's where most of their attacking raids seem to come from. I think, to be honest, if we're fair, the Roosters are paying the price of some of their recruitment and retention decisions. And if I thought it was very telling that Trent Robinson during the week didn't, shut the door on the idea of getting Cherry-Evans there from next season, which would, the cynic in you would suggest that maybe they're already in for him. But we'll see what happens. See what happens with them, but they do. They need. I don't know. Chad Townsend a couple of weeks ago looked great. In the win against Penrith, he looked very controlled, but it was, he wasn't as dominant last night.
So, how long do you think this whole DCE and Roosters, and from a journalist point of view, how long until it will die down, or do you think it will continue festering for a number of weeks until we have it announced?
I think so.
Whatever Daly's doing.
I think so. I reckon it will. It'll get to a point where it gets a little bit tedious for the clickbait journos out there. But it's an important story. Like, he's one of the biggest names in the game, one of the biggest halfbacks in the game, one of the quality halfbacks in the game, and you'd be mad not to want him if you've got the cap space. So until he's done, that storyline's going to keep going and going and going. I can't believe that the Cherry-Evans camp thinks that coming out publicly will end speculation about his future. If anything, it's just stirred up the market.
Before we get to the break, really quickly, Roosters fans, Victor Radley, another concussion. Any word out of the Roosters?
Well, he went back on. I spoke to the Roosters this morning. They seemed to think he didn't show any symptoms after the game. That doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't affected by it, but that's 4 HIAs this year.
Yeah.
I was surprised that he went back on. I was surprised that he got cleared to play, but I'm sure if any club knows how to handle concussions, it's the Roosters. They've had to do it a lot in the last few years.
Yeah, well said. This is Saturday League Kickoff. Thanks to Wing House, the best seats and beers, always guaranteed. Coming up next, well, these Brisbane Broncos are a winning team at the moment. Michael Maguire joins us on the show.
It's game time. We're off and running. Sydney's home of sport here on SEN. It's 11:70 AM on your dial.
Or it's on your SEN app.
It's where news breaks.
He has to pay the Dragons.
It's interactive.
I won't be holding my breath.
It's where you find the game's greats and the most entertaining shows you'll ever hear. What Canterbury have done, I've got them top 4 this year. SEN 1170, live on SEN and streaming on the SEN app.
Michael Maguire on Saturday League Kickoff. How are you, Madge?
Good, Satts. How are you guys?
Going very well. Well, you're obviously feeling great on a Saturday morning, especially after a performance like that. In the conditions as well, Madge.
Yeah, it was a pretty wild conditions. It still is up here. The rain's unbelievable. But, the boys were able to stick solid, and, it was a tough game because, obviously, the circumstances of where the Dolphins are at, and they were definitely up for it. And it was a real slug match at times. The ball was in play for periods of time where both teams went from end to end, and it was real high quality considering the conditions. It was actually a lot heavier, I reckon, on the field than what you probably could see on the TV and even from where I was up in the stands, because the boys in the conditions had to work hard to make sure that they kept the pressure on.
So much for wet weather football, Madge. As you just said, it was end-to-end footy the whole time. The Dolphins took it to you guys really early on there. It was a real classic battle of Brisbane. But you must be very pleased with how you guys... I thought your forwards were exceptional, as they have been throughout this season.
Yeah, Webby, I mean, as you said, the opposition definitely came at us. We had to fight, and I thought, our middles worked really well together, laid a platform, and obviously off the smarts of our halves, and we came up with some good opportunities. And when we were down there, and we had to take them because we knew we weren't probably going to get too many opportunities. And it was good to see that the execution was good in conditions like that. And get away with the win.
You did mention the halves and the importance of them. Now, to the listeners out there, Madge, the importance in the wet of your kicking game, as boring as it might be, but as a coach, it is the be-all and end-all in those conditions. And your halves last night, especially Reynolds, just kept perching the Dolphins only 5 or 10 metres off their try line.
Yeah, Sats. I mean, I think both the halves and even Reece, when he has an opportunity to kick, we've got a few options there, which is great. So, more often than not, when you've got one half, and Reno's kicking, but Hunty took a few good options there, and a couple of times there, Ren got a decent crack at the ball too. So if you went up and the spiral went up, and they actually handled it pretty well considering the conditions. So playing a longer game and making sure we got the ball down their end, because we had to dig ourselves off our line quite often, actually. And then, obviously having that extra length of your kick is always handy to get you further down the track. And then they had to go down and defend, their back three, which are quick and fast. And, I thought our kick chase was excellent.
Shibasaki was the story of the game, Madge. Tell us a little bit about his journey and what you said to him in the pre-season, what your expectations were. He had he's always been a quality player, but he's been a bit of a journeyman the last few years. Were you surprised by what he produced last night?
Not from how hard he worked throughout the pre-season, but again, it is a great story, and he's obviously spent a bit of time away, and he was in the game early, and then he left, and he's come back, and I think he's just at a point in his life where he realised that he wanted to have a red hot crack. And I'll never forget the first day. He probably kicked me for telling this one, but when he first arrived, he'd done a lot of work prior. I think that first day, and he turned up, and he was under the pump in the first day, and I looked at it and I went, "Oh, geez, what have I got here?" But to where he was then, to where he is now, it's a real credit to him. He's just worked extremely hard throughout the pre-season, and he's actually got some good leadership about him as well. Like, he's got good presence in the team, and he talks well. And because he's been around a lot of the boys years and years ago, he's pretty close with them. So the relationship between the group is obviously something there that they've been working at, and Gem's been able to add a lot to that.
He's a big unit too. Now, Payne Haas last night, again, he was outstanding, especially in his second stint, Madge. Did you leave him off a little bit longer last night? Was that just the way the game was playing out and the conditions and how heavy it can get on those big guys' legs?
Yeah, it is, and it's sort of, Payne played the first period for quite a long time, and then you sort of take him off, and with having Paddy and the rotation of the forwards, and I think Big Xavier's starting to find his feet, at a higher level now too, so, able to leave the boys out there for a bit longer, so when Payne comes out, he can have that impact that we all know he's got. So that's sort of, what you're thinking when you're up in the coach's box, how best you get your rotation. And I thought Paddy was really good last night. He did a lot of work and a lot of little stuff that you don't tend to probably take notice of, but that's what Paddy was doing. And so when you've got the two like that, and then the rotation of the other guys, even Corey Jensen, he does a lot of work that people probably don't register because of the other qualities of the players around him. But just the forward pack working well together is something there that I've been really pleased and proud of.
Madge, I've been leaping to the defence of Reece Walsh the last couple of weeks on this show. He's 22. He's been getting, I think, far too much criticism and heat for his performances. I thought he was all right. I thought he was great last week, and I thought he was exceptional last night. What do you think of some of the commentary around how he's playing or how he has played, and what did you think of his performance last night? Yeah,
well, I think when you're in that position, he's coming up with plays in split moments, and they're always going to be scrutinised, and obviously what he's capable of, and everyone's probably sitting back waiting for him to come up with something. But it's playing the team game, which I've been really pleased with Reece. There's sometimes players aren't going to come off, and many players make errors, but it's what you're doing away from the ball or for your teammates is something there that's been a real highlight for myself. I speak a lot about what he's doing defensively, and I think that's something there that the team's worked hard at, and that has a lot to do with a fullback out the back, making sure that you're getting your numbers right and getting your chat right, and then also too the amount of metres that he's covering consistently, and it might be for one play. And when you watch the ball, and we've been stuck on our try line a few times, Reece's in the picture, when they might potentially make a break. So they're the things that obviously I'm pushing there in that space, and the plays when he's executing when we've got the ball, they'll come off. It's just a matter of just keep at it and keep going after them.
The art of coaching, I suppose, Madge, at this high level, or at any level, I suppose, is creating that environment of competition between internally amongst positions. I love this little competition that's going on between Jack Kajewski, who's keeping a player like Brendan Piakura out of the starting lineup, and then the last 2 weeks, I thought Piakura has been outstanding, especially last night. He rattled a few.
Yeah, Brendan's a good player. They both are, obviously. And it's just the little things that the team themselves, pushing hard, that makes us who we are. And Jack at the moment's doing a good job in that space, but Brenny's been able to come on, and he'll get plenty more time as we move forward. And I thought Brenny was strong when he came on. He's got good footwork, and obviously his contacts. When you saw that last night, he's got some good contact. But just the way they're working together, and the cohesion or the connection of the players. Jack's sort of just got it at the moment, but the competition between the boys is excellent at training, and they compete. It's good to get training. I love going to training because I have got a group that's hungry, which is great.
Madge, you said something quite interesting. I don't know if it was last week or the week before about where you're at in your coaching career. I think you said that your experience as Kiwis coach and New South Wales coach had mellowed you in many ways. Is that right? Can you elaborate on that? I think it's really interesting that coaching high pressure representative teams has made you chill out.
I'm not sure about that, Webby, but look, I definitely you learn as you go, and as a younger coach, I was probably a bit stubborn and stuck in my ways, but being able to probably just relax a little bit more around, then that comes with experience. The players that I've been able to coach and listening, and I've been able to coach some great players. It's incredible sort of to think the players that I've been able to be around, and you learn from them, and I think that's something there that I guess I really try to add to what I'm doing as a coach. And I've got a lot of quality within the group I've got. I've got someone like Humpty and Reno and Paddy, Dino. I can go through the group. They've all had great experience. So I guess in some ways, maybe I'm listening at a higher level to the environment that I'm in, and you learn by your experiences. And I've learned a hell of a lot over the different walks of what I've been doing.
Good stuff. Now, before we let you go, Madge, a great text here from 496 says, took my kids to see the Broncos facility last week. Madge approached them outside the centre, welcomed them to the Broncos, took time out of his day to say good day and made their day. Thanks, Madge. So some love there from some Broncos and Queensland fans. Now, before we let you go, you're a New South Welshman, a successful Blues coach in Queensland, and with the glass houses comment last year. Have you got any Queenslanders that are coming up to you and sledging you about that?
Yes, perhaps I get plenty. It's all in good banter, but they don't miss. But anyway, it was a good time that, and it was an incredible experience to be a part of something like that. So obviously, we were on the right end, but the Queenslanders definitely don't miss me.
Yeah,
still living rent free in their heads, Madge. I love it.
So they should let you forget it. Hey, thank you very much, Michael Maguire. Well done to the start of the season so far. Well done last night, and thank you very much for joining us on Saturday League Kickoff.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for having us on.
Coming up next, it's going to be the big news of the week, which of course is Manly and Daly Cherry-Evans. Welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. Scotty Sattler, Andrew Webster on the text line 0457 736 736, or give us a call 1300 01 1170 for all our Fox League viewers and our SEN listeners. Welcome for another Saturday. Text here from Gary Belcher, the one Gary Belcher, saying, how come Andrew Webster's got so much makeup on?
That's a lie. It says, why does Satts have so much makeup on?
He's supporting
I'm reading it here, so you've just completely lied. You nearly got us cancelled last week with your incorrect pronunciation of Andrew Webster, here. The coach's name.
We've got a couple of listeners here, Lundy and Co, saying, happy Saturday walkers, not the other word as well. DC to the Cowboys, 559. And that is what we're going to talk about because it is the big news of the week. And this is all brought to you by Wing House, the best seats and beers always guaranteed. Now, let's look at the Daly Cherry-Evans situation. A little bit of a really quick timeline, listeners. Okay, so there are reports from James Hooper on Fox Sports throughout the week saying, I think it was on 360, where he said that DCE asked for a release 12 months ago.
Yes.
Okay. And then we fast forward.
So just to clarify that,
yep.
I spoke to the DCE camp about that, and apparently he asked for it because he wanted to go back to Queensland for family reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was not given.
Compassionate grounds, they usually say, don't they?
That's right.
Yep. Now, then we fast forward to the end of the season. Scott Penn, in one of the publications yesterday, has stated as saying that they made an offer of around $750 for 1 year for 2026 to Daly Cherry-Evans, and that was refused by the management because they wanted more money. Email evidence of those interactions. He did say it's not an official NRL offer, like on documentation, but there was an amount and a term that was communicated to Daly Cherry-Evans and his team.
The DCE camp stated that that's not correct and that there was no real firm offer made whatsoever.
Yep. Okay. Well, whether it's someone just has to agree there was some sort of offer made. If it is, it doesn't matter whether it's official or not.
I know.
If there's a number and a term that has been conversed either side, that's an offer.
I know, but to be honest, unless you see those emails, we're not going to really
Exactly,
know,
and we probably never will.
Because this is the problem I find, Sats, that there's so much ass covering going on. Are we allowed to say that at 11 o'clock?
You can. Yeah, that's fine.
What other words? Well, you've set the standard, so
Yeah.
you set the bar pretty low. So I could be a potty mouth if I want to.
Yep.
No, but I find that's probably says a lot to me about where the club is at. That both camps, particularly Manly, seem to be scrambling to make sure they win the PR battle, and I think that's not great.
I think you're right. Both camps are trying to win that PR battle, especially before a home game this Sunday as well. Now, Daly Cherry-Evans, he breaks the news of DCE set to leave the club late Monday afternoon. The dirt, Denny Wadley, he was hovering around Monday morning. The word that there was something big coming about. He just didn't know what it was going to be.
Sniffing around.
Yes, as good as he is.
The great wilder man himself.
NRL 360 revealed that the Seagulls management makes an offer on air, 2 years, valued around $1.5 million a year. Then DCE rejects that offer respectfully on air as well, not long after that.
It was a hectic Monday night, wasn't
So
it?
DCE, who I love, mind you, is one of the most respectful human beings you'll ever meet in the game of rugby league. He respectfully reneges on,
said no.
refuses that offer live on TV without actually looking at any of the terms or clauses or whatever it may be, even if there were any attached. Then we see Tony Mestroff informs the media on Tuesday morning that official offer of 2 years of whatever the figure it was going to be. Wednesday night, Michael Shamus reveals Jamal Fogarty is the Seagulls target for DCE. Now, I'm not sure whether anyone from Manly has spoken to Michael Shamus and said that's who we're going to go after, not knowing that Canberra have a club clause on him by round 6. They need to inform Jamal whether he's going to be part of their plans or not. Or, I'm going to throw this one at you, Webby, have Manly and Canberra come to some sort of agreement that,
I'm not sure.
that Canberra are not going to take up that option because they've got young Ethan Sanders, who is their succession plan to partner Ethan Strange in the half.
I'm not entirely sure what Manly or Canberra have discussed. I would have thought you'd keep Fogarty.
Absolutely.
He's just starting to turn into the halfback that Canberra need. I don't know why you get rid of him now. So
and Ricky also, a couple of weeks ago, I remember reading somewhere that it might have been on the Fox Sports website where Ricky had said that Jamal and I have got a great relationship. I don't need to talk to his agent about it. We'll go and have coffee. We'll sort it out. We're honest with each other. And when a player and a coach have got that sort of relationship, it can go two ways. Player can say to coach, love you, coach. Can you please let me go? And coach says, absolutely. We've got a kid here in the waiting in the wings. Or coach says to player and vice versa, I love being here. I want to retire here. Thanks for everything you've done for me.
That's right. I just find it's just another sort of little chapter in this whole saga between Manly and DCE. It's whichever way either party want to swing it. It's a divided club. It's a divided club. I thought the way I'd be very, very surprised, and I would be very, very disappointed if I'm a Manly fan if this is nothing more than what many have suggested, and that's a fallout between Joe Webby, who manages DCE, also looks after James Tedesco.
And Reece Robson.
But also Webby's fallout with Isaac Moses, who manages Anthony Seibold and others at the club. If that's what's at play, if I'm Scott Penn, the owner of Manly, I'd be very, very disappointed that, a lover's tiff between two managers, one's not even an accredited manager, is at the heart of DCE leaving that club. I think that's pretty pathetic, to be honest. I reckon Sats, the bigger issue here now for Manly, of course, is whatever Cherry-Evans decides to do. He's denied that, by coming out and trying to end the speculation with what he did on Channel 9 on Monday night was to, put the matter to bed. It's just completely stirred up interest in the player market.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, and this is the problem of having, such a messy contracting system, it throws all these other clubs into disarray. This time it's Canberra. When it happened with Dylan Brown a few weeks ago, it was the West Tigers because everyone's thinking whether Luai or Galvin's going to go there. This is the first month of the season, for God's sake.
Wayne Bennett was right when he said we are
100%.
self-imploding 3 weeks into the comp. Yeah.
But for mine, Sats, the bigger issue is just whether Daly Cherry-Evans' teammates are going to be able to stomach what's going on, because it was a pretty, if I'm his teammate, I'm thinking that's a pretty selfish thing that he's done. And I have great respect for
Are you talking
Cherry.
about going on TV?
Yeah, by going out and turning it into the circus that it has. I just think that's, and you could just see how disappointed someone like Jake Trebojevic was when he fronted the press early this week. We've got that audio now.
Oh, well, we're just respectful of that's what he wants to do, so it doesn't worry me or what. I've just got to go about my business. Not going to change how I go about things, so I'm just going to work really hard, lead the team as best as I can, and I'm sure everyone's that way. We want to play well for Manly.
And you expect nothing else from Jake because he is so respectful of the club, the game itself. He's obviously got good relationships with his teammates and Daly Cherry-Evans as well. It would be disappointing as a player if you're going to lose your best player. I mean, I'll just... Penrith days, for example. If Craig Gower had come and said, hey, guys, I'm going to leave the club, I would be so disappointed that he's leaving because I love him as a teammate. I want him alongside you each and every week. And it was a Penrith junior, so it would have been shattering. And DC has been there 16 seasons. That's not including the development years before when he was playing it with their feeder club system as well. So, yeah, you'd be disappointed as a player that he's going to move on. Got a text here from Fawn. He says, "G'day, boys. DC and his management have been very carefully created an auction, so both parties get top dollar. It'll be interesting to see if Manly sit back and then top the best offer. Will he backflip again?" I don't think Manly's salary cap can allow it.
It's funny. So I've put this to the DCE camp because when you've been around as long as I have, all these stories pop up a second time. I remember covering it the first time when he did backflip on the Titans deal by round 13. That was the rules back then, and he was allowed to do that. And he said in the press conference, I remember sitting in it and looking straight at him as he said it. I welcomed the speculation because I wanted to see how much more I could get out of Manly. They're adamant that's not the case. And Cherry-Evans is he was a 25-year-old kid with two children under 5 back then. So money was a concern for him when he was 25. He's not so much now at the age of 36. But he is again used, and Daly Cherry-Evans has done nothing wrong. He's playing by the rules. Yeah. He's a very smart guy, and so's his management. But I think it's naive if people think that this is just a way of putting the whole speculation about his future at Manly to one side. I just think it's he's right. The text message is right. It's created an auction for his services, and it's going to get him top dollar.
Yeah, exactly. Whether he went on TV on Monday night to do what he did and just basically tell the world what he's doing with his rugby league career, or whether he did it in round 11, 12, it doesn't matter. There's no good time when it comes to how passionate people are and emotional they get about rugby league, their team, their players. So no great time. I can see why he and his management team did it. After the game on Sunday, Brett Reid asked him a few questions about his future. I think he's gone home and said to his manager and his partner, his wife, and just said, you know what, I need to rip the Band-Aid off right now. If I do it now, it'll end a lot of the speculation around the really important time of the season at the end, as we're coming into finals time and around Origin time. If I can rip it off now, slowly, it'll weed itself out of the major cycle. I can see why they did it, but the pain initially...
To get all the other clubs interested.
Yeah, but to get rid of all the pain early, and then it just becomes another talking point a little bit later on.
I thought it was very interesting. He said, I don't know whether I may or may not retire, I may not play on. And then Cameron Smith said, do you still want to play? He goes, I've got a burning ambition to keep playing. So that, to me, suggests that he's looking for another club if he hasn't done a deal already.
Yep. Have your say.
Call me cynical, Satts. Call me a cynical old hack, but that's the way I'm
reading. A cynical journo? No way. Hey? Have your say. 1300 01 1170. Is there some passionate Manly fans out there? Give us a call. If also the viewers on Fox League, you want to give us a call. 1300 01 1170, or send us a text 0457 736 736. And coming up next, we're going to get to a lot of those texts, a lot of emotion on the text line as well. We're going to read some of those out. Yeah, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster, and also thank you to all our viewers on Fox League and also our listeners on SEN, the SEN network as well. Like I said earlier on, great collaboration to bring the rugby league content, the first chance you get on a Saturday morning to have your opinion. There has been some strong opinions around DCE. We also got Mo from Lakemba saying any chance Dua Lipa is going to go to a Belmore training session next week, because there was a person in the crowd at the Dua Lipa concert. She said, "What do I need to do while I'm in Sydney?" And he said, "Go to a Doggies game." How good are rugby league fans?
That's sensational.
Hey, you get involved in the show if you want to give us a call, 1300 01 1170. We got Chris from Brisbane on the line. How are you, Chris?
Good, mate. How are you?
Very well, very well. What do you got in your mind?
Just want to know what your thoughts on David Fafita sitting on the bench, being on all that money.
Yeah,
it's weird, isn't it?
It is a weird one, but I've got to say, I feel as though, Chris, that they might have found the right sort of model for Dave Fafita. And like we were saying earlier on, you've got to embrace those positions and not feel as though it's a form of rejection from the coach. So when he's coming on the field, you want quality as opposed to the quantity of minutes, which I think time gone by, Chris, you're paying him whatever he's getting, $900 $1 million, you're expecting 80 minutes out of him. When you know he's not an 80-minute footballer, if that's to be respectfully fair. What do you think, Chris?
I just think he might have lost his X factor, because that's why he's coming off the bench for that reason. I just don't think he's got it anymore, and he's got, on that sort of money, you kind of expect that sort of stuff, and I just thought they'd put him out there for 80 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, a lot of people think like you do, Chris. Thank you very much for the call. But with Dave Fafita, I feel as though he hasn't lost an X factor, because he's still got all the same attributes. He's big, he's quick, he's actually beautiful pass for a try last night as well to Philip Sami, I think it was. He's got all the skills. It's up to the people around him, like especially your halves and your hookers, to position him and not just say you're the biggest kid, fastest kid on the field like under sevens. Here's the ball, run over the top of people. You can't do that in the NRL. They've got to have a job about positioning him, isolating him on defenders, and then using it a little bit like they do with Viliami Kikau at the Bulldogs. Same sort of mindset.
He's not a bad bench player to have, though, is he? For that amount. But I take the caller's point. It's what's he on, 1.2?
Oh, I think he's on less than that with the new contract.
With the new deal?
Yeah. Hey, Mark from the Northern Beaches is on the line as well, 1300 01 1170. How are you, Mark?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. DCE, you're obviously a Manly fan. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm bit disappointed, but it might be like both sides of the thing, like the management and that, and I'd like to see DC play well and all the players going well to the end of the season.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're hoping it doesn't affect the playing group moving forward and it does stifle their season. Are you going to the game on Sunday?
Yeah, I'll be there, 100%.
Good. And Mark, how do you think the fans will accept the whole situation?
I'm not sure. It's up to everyone. If everyone will have their own opinion on what they think, and I hope there's no booing or anything, but just to give the guy, Daly Cherry-Evans, the respect he deserves.
Yeah, well said, Mark. Thank you very much for the call. We've got Jamison in Manly as well, wants to talk about that very point around the game and Daly Cherry-Evans and the management on Sunday. How are you, Jamison?
Good morning. Very well, thank you. How are you?
Going very well. So, your thoughts, what's happening this Sunday?
My thoughts on Cherry-Evans. It's not the first time he's burnt Manly. He hurt us way back in the day when he obviously backflipped us. And I actually, I want to see the Manly supporters boo him. I want him to run out for the rest of the year and they can boo him and put pressure on him. I mean, he's turned the season into it's all about me again. But look, it's time for them to go out there to perform, and he's going to have to play through the boo. And I'd love to hold a sign and play through the boo.
Jamison, would you like to see him go early?
I would. Very much so. And I think he will. If he doesn't get injured, I'm hoping that he makes it through for Queensland and everything like that. But what he's doing, everybody online is just going crazy at the moment. And he's got to be accountable for it.
Jamison,
I don't think the club should.
Jamison, well, a very passionate fan, and we're seeing a lot of that, aren't we? We're seeing a fan base and also hopefully not a playing group that could be a little bit divided just in these initial weeks. There's nothing better than what in sport?
A victory.
A victory.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say money, but a victory always helps. But you know what? I know. Look, they should beat Parramatta comfortably tomorrow. But it's just going to be interesting to see how Anthony Seibold keeps it together in the grind of the season. If with so much speculation around DCE's future.
Yeah. 289 on the text line says, hey guys, James here. Should DCE just retire from the game, or is it just about money for him? Well, and we got a number of texts here saying it is a business. It is a business. And rugby league players are they're a little bit like a sole trader, aren't they? They're always doing the best for them, first and foremost, which they should, because the game is full time. So, But while he's still got a lot of juice in the legs and he can still play at the level that he's playing, why wouldn't he keep playing?
That's right. I didn't really get a sense, though, out of the Nine interview, like, does he want to scratch an itch with another club?
No, this is where he's always been so professional and calculating in the way that he portrays himself, Daly Cherry-Evans, and he's a smart businessman as well, away from the game, and it's about saying whatever my decision is, it's going to be a complete surprise to everyone.
Which is fine, fine, but that's why you can't help but, like Jamison said before, like, you know, you're not going to really ingratiate yourself with Manly supporters if that's, you know, if you're thinking about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Fox League viewers, you are leaving us now. For SEN listeners, you can continue into the second hour and we'll look at the Saturday games. And we're also, because the Dragons are playing the Melbourne Storm, we're going to look back on one of the great grand finals, 1999. The Melbourne Storm up against the Dragons, two teams that had only come together as one in 1998, one in 1999. So we're going to look upon that and get to all your text messages as well. Thank you very much. That's half time for Saturday League kickoff. More very soon. Oh, yeah, as the Western Sydney Eagles says on the text line, 0457 736 736. He says, okay, the good guy hour is done now. Time to get loose, the Western Sydney Eagle. So we'll do our best. Now, what he means by that is some of the OGs of SEN, which are Lundy and Canara Cowboy and Dunny and these sort of guys, Big J-Dog.
Gotcha.
They send some pretty loose text messages now and then. They're saying, what are we not cool enough for this new show because of our text messages are a little bit risque? But that's not the case at all. It's just a matter of us getting to all the text messages when we can.
Exactly.
We are inundated.
I mean, a mate has sent me a photo of us on all the TVs at Harvey Norman.
How good's that? Shout out to everyone in Harvey Norman looking at a TV right now.
Exactly. I don't know if you need like 20 TVs with our head. Well, not so much your head, but mine.
Just to recap.
What the poor Harvey Norman shoppers need on a Saturday morning.
Recap of the first hour. Of course, the first hour on Fox League as well. You can go back and re-watch that.
Over and over and over.
Yeah, just on repeat.
Just go all day, that hour, over and over.
Great cure for insomnia, they say.
No, we were good.
Friday night review, we caught up with Michael Maguire, the coach of the Brisbane Broncos, who was very pleased with his side's performance in those conditions. Webby, good guy.
Mellow Madge.
Mellow Madge.
He's mellowed.
I don't know about that. I don't want Madge to be mellow, because the great Madge is the one that...
Well, that's why it stood out for me when he said... I'm pretty sure it was during the week. There's so much bloody news these days, you lose track of when things were said. But he made the observation that since... Because he's always been an intense type, Madge. Anyone that coached the West Tigers was, going to go around the twist at some point. But he made the observation that coaching both New Zealand and New South Wales and learning to listen to those players a hell of a lot more had made him a better coach and a more calmer, chilled coach. So I'm calling him Mellow Madge. That said, last night there was an error from one of his players. They shot a shot of him up in the coach's box. He didn't look too mellow then.
I don't think he was mellow when Selwyn Cobbo threw a 40-metre pass across the Reece Walsh in the face of the defence, 2 metres out from his try line. I've got to say, as a viewer, and as a fan, we love it.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely love it.
That's it.
Because the outcome doesn't rely on us. Like, it doesn't affect our life.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hey, Jeff in Seven Hills says, morning, fellas. Can someone please give us a report on Thursday night's game? We are going to do that very soon, because coming up in the second hour of Saturday League kickoff, I'm getting used to the name because I struggled, as you know, in our rehearsals. I was thinking Saturday morning kickoff or...
Saturday League kickoff.
Saturday League kickoff. It just flows off the tongue now.
It's a really hard one.
We are going to preview Saturday games as well. Look back at that Friday night game. Look back on the 1999 grand final as well. And Port Adelaide Dragon says, when you review the 99 grand final, guys, are you going to discuss Bill Harrigan being a cheat? Dragons 13 plus, put your house on it today. I don't know. There was no controversy from Bill Harrigan like there was in the 89 grand final for the 99.
No.
I don't think there was there?
No, I'm a Dragons man.
Can you remember the video referee that day?
Chris Ward.
Chris Ward. Yeah.
I also remember Anthony Mundine dropping the ball over the line just before half time.
Craig Smith, not that
I've woken up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and thought about that moment.
Yeah. We also got a lot of passion around Daly Cherry-Evans, and some from some fans in support of Daly, some against the decision Daly's made, some that are not in support of the Manly management at all. Very passionate here.
I know, but I've got to say, I think there's quite a lot of anger from Seagulls fans out there at Cherry-Evans. So obviously want to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely.
More and more throughout this next hour.
We want you to call the show as well, 1300 01 1170. We love first-timers if you've never called the show. Everyone remembers the first time when you call the show.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't like their voice, but we've got Andrew in Newcastle on the line. How are you, Andrew?
Yeah, good, thanks, guys. And, passionate Manly fan. And I wouldn't boo Cherry-Evans, but I can say, I just want to ask you guys, what's a player's legacy worth? Like, from the filthy cockroach days of 2015, it's only been the last 2 or 3 years where Daly's performances at Queensland have got him back in, I think, the good books with the majority of league fans. And for an amount of maybe he gets an extra 400,000 for 1 or 2 years, but it goes from being, can you imagine someone like Steve Menzies or Jeff Tuvey or Jake Trbojevic? Like, what's a legacy worth to a one-club player? And I just think he's turned his legacy upside down again. He'll be remembered as that player that was all for himself.
You know what? That's a very good point, Andrew. I was talking to people about this during the week. I think the evolution of Cherry-Evans from, young, precocious talent who, along with Kieran Foran, won a comp in their first season with Manly in 2011, and then from the backflip onwards, and with in 2016, and he just never seemed quite at ease in that team with the older players. There was certainly division then. I 100% guarantee that. And a lot of, Manly made a really clear decision to move those older players out, and it became Cherry-Evans' team. And a few years after that, the same thing happened with Queensland. They will deny it, but there was always, he just didn't fit into that Queensland setup, and in a cultural sense, and that was always going to be hard to do with the likes of Smith, Thurston, Cronk, all those older, well-established Queensland players. They moved on, and in time, the Queensland side became Cherry-Evans' team, and they had so much success. But no one will forget what happened in 2020. Everyone talks about what Cameron Munster did in that 2020 Origin series.
Yep.
But Cherry-Evans and Wayne Bennett really led the way to make them winners of that Shield in that third game in Brisbane. And I just thought the reinvention of Cherry-Evans into this statesman and revered player in the game, like it was complete. But this is you're right, this is going to hurt it. This hurts his legacy. On
the flip side of that, Andrew, and thank you very much for the call, the flip side of that is you do use Cooper Cronk. You mentioned Cooper Cronk. He had this great legacy at Melbourne, moved to Sydney because of his relationship with Tara Rushton, now married with a couple of beautiful kids.
He moved for love.
Absolutely.
I would do anything for love, including signing a big $1 million a year contract.
He's got a great legacy at Melbourne, then went on and has this great legacy now at the Roosters. And Nick Plyce and Trent Robinson were quite succinct in what they needed after, I think it was 2016 it was. They went minor premiers 15, second last for 16. They had to fix it quickly, and Cooper Cronk was the piece to the puzzle. So he's got a great legacy at both clubs. Now, Daly has the opportunity, if he continues to play, mind you, that I think it'll depend on how Manly finish this season. If Manly win the comp this year, which they have every chance of doing if everyone stays fit, well, then his legacy is intact. And if he goes on to another club and they make the finals or win a comp, whoever that club may be, he'll have a legacy at another club as well.
But that's the big question. Is I find, I don't want to deal in too much sort of rumour and innuendo. There was plenty of talk of them being an unhappy club late last season, and then they made the second week, reached the second week of the finals. So, just regardless of how much, you don't have to like everyone you work with. I do love working with you, Sat. So I should make that clear.
Likewise.
Yes. For now,
yeah,
but you know what I mean. Like football clubs, you know this better than I do.
Yep.
Like not everyone's going to get on, not everyone's going to like the coach, not everyone's going to like the captain, but you all get on with it because that's what you do in a professional sporting environment. But you do need some sort of chemistry there if you're going to win a competition, and whether Manly can sustain the drama of what's happened now all the way through the year and then do it in the finals, it's going to be interesting.
Do you know what? Everyone has this argument around, and we're going to get to Jim from Tamworth very soon who wants to talk about DC as well, but everyone talks about that the coach and the players have to have this super connected relationship. They've got to have, got to have respect for your coach and vice versa. But the players don't, especially the captain, doesn't need to live out of the pocket of the coach. We've all got this belief that the coach and the player just have to be intertwined and more or less
great mates.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. When we won the comp in 2003...
Which teammates and coaches did you not like in that year?
Which teammates?
Yeah.
I loved all my teammates.
What about coaches?
Coaches? I had actually a really good relationship, I think, with pretty much... I struggled with Mark Murray early on in my career, but
right.
I was really young. And I realised if I went to Mark as a mature player, I would have had a completely different... and he was sort of post Jack Gibson at the Roosters, and so you're coming out with this huge shadow looming over the top of you as well. And we get on great, Mark and I now, but at that time I think I was a little bit immature, just mentally and emotionally. I would have enjoyed him as a real mature coach, mature player. But when we were at Penrith, like Craig Gower and John Lang, they didn't have this. They got on really well. They respected each other, but
they're not great. They're not best
Craig
mates.
Gower will be able to tell you. He could count on one hand how many times captain and coach were at each other's places for barbecues or down at the local just having a casual drink talking about the game. I don't think that would have ever happened in our time when we were at Penrith when Langy was there.
But you can't not dislike each other intensely between captain and
I don't know whether
coach.
that's happening at Manly, but if it is, it could have been mediated by management. It should have been identified at an earlier case. If what Jimmy Hooper is reporting on NRL 360 throughout the week on Fox Sports that he asked for a release 12 months ago.
I don't know why. Again, regardless of whether he asked for the release or not, I do think it has been botched by Manly's management. I think you have to sit down with Cherry-Evans post-Origin and say, listen, whatever it takes, we're going to keep you here. And I think that's. I said this on Matty Johns' show yesterday, and it's like, do you want to win a comp in the next couple of years?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a far better chance of doing it with Daly Cherry-Evans there. Just make him happy.
Yep.
And I notice that a lot with Bennett. Does it a lot too. He takes the bullets. He'll have to work with people he doesn't necessarily want to work with, but he'll do it because he knows that he needs them. And I think that's prudent management for a football club, and Manly haven't done it here.
Andrew on the text line, completely apples and oranges comparing Cooper legacy to Daly's. Yes and no. Yes and no. When it comes to Origin, I don't think Daly's legacy will ever be tainted, to be quite honest. Hey, let's get to our open line as well, 1300 01 1170. Jim, beautiful part of the world, Tamworth, about DC as well. How are you, Jim?
Yeah, g'day. How are you?
Going very well. How's the weather out in Tamworth? Okay?
It is bucketing down, mate.
Yeah.
Finally. We haven't had much rain, but it's really good to have some rain, so it's great.
Good stuff. Okay, DCE. And are you a Knights fan, are you?
No, I'm a Bunnies fan, actually.
Okay.
But we're actually moving to Newcastle shortly in a few months. But, I was just wondering whether the Newcastle Knights would be kicking themselves if they had the opportunity to get DCE instead of Brown.
Well, this comes down to club, his manager Joe Weeby, what relationship they've got. If Joe was realised that Daly was going to talk to other clubs, whether he contacts Newcastle and says, hey, confidentially, do we need to have a chat? Well, that's how it usually plays out. Webby, yeah. Yeah,
that's right. I would have thought that it was more a case of, for the big dogs, you sit down with your owner. You sit down with your coach and your CEO and hug it out and try and get it done.
There would be, I think there would be part of the Knights. The Knights, I think that would be saying, if we waited a couple of more weeks, could have we sat down at least and negotiated? Or in the rugby league world, they usually know what other clubs are doing. Chat and scuttlebutt, there's that word. Gets around
scuttlebutt. People have been using that a lot more.
Quite frequently. So maybe the Knights knew that if DC was ever going to make a move, that the deal was already done, and many are saying at the Roosters. We don't know that for a fact. It's very easy to always throw the Roosters into the mix because they are such a powerful club.
That's right.
Yeah,
and they got cap space.
Exactly.
You know? That said, they were talking about it using that cap space to upgrade all their juniors. So, but if the Roosters want a quality player, they're always going to be very much in the market for it.
We are going to talk about that if we get time a little bit later on. Back to the future when it comes to the Roosters. They started 1 and 3, and we go back to that 2015 year, I think minor premiers or top 2, 2016 second last, 2017 second, back-to-back premierships. They fixed it really quickly. Is this following the same model? So we're going to get to that very, very soon. Also, Roxy in Townsville is on the line as well. How are you, Roxy?
I'm well, and you guys?
Very well, Roxy. Now, am I led to believe there's some pretty heavy rain up around the central and northern parts of Queensland?
Too much.
Yeah. Okay. Hope everyone's safe, especially the farmers out west as well, and their crops and cattle and sheep. So, what's on your mind, Roxy?
Well, just a quick question. I'm a first-time caller, and there's a bit of noise at the moment here with the Cowboys. I'm a Cowboys fan. I just want to know, from your point of view, what do you think it is? Some people are saying it's a coach. Some people are saying it's the culture within. Just wanting to get your point of view.
I'll be honest with you. I actually don't know, because he's a really good coach, Toddy Payten. He's proven that. And I do think their recruitment has probably been a little bit left to be desired, Roxy, to be honest. They've lost Finny Fuiaki. Helam Lukey, unfortunately, went down. They have lost some players, and they haven't been able to I suppose, restock the top 30 with quality players. They've got a lot of good young players coming through, which takes time. That's how I see it, Webby.
Oh, it's funny. So, Roxy, I actually talked to Todd Payten 2 weeks ago about this. I called him and asked him what he says to all the speculation, the scuttlebutt, if you will, of him losing the support of the players. He said he went to the captains, Tom Dearden, and who's the other captain? Who's the co-captain of the
Jason Taumalolo. Ruben Cotter.
Oh, sorry, Ruben Cotter. Sorry, bit of a blank spot there. And he said that last year, when they had lost those 5 games in a row, they were very upfront with him about his body language and how he was approaching the playing group, and they went on to reach the second week of the finals and probably could have beaten Cronulla to go to a preliminary, which would have been a great result for the club. Whether those harsh conversations, Roxy, are being said now, whether they're being that upfront with him and they're unhappy with him, only those within the walls of the Cowboys know. But look, there has been so much talk about the playing group or Todd Payten being on the nose there for so long. I suppose we'll know soon enough as this season starts to play out if they're playing for him or not.
Yeah, thank you, Roxy. Thank you very much, Cowboys fan up there. I hope that answers some of your questions. Now, anyone who questions whether Todd Payten can coach, well, the results show that he can get them through to the finals. And
Coach of the Year.
Exactly. So
things haven't been the same since he made that 4-hour speech at the Daly Emso. I just don't think things have been.
Did he?
Yeah, you remember that speech?
He's got beautiful eyes, but
he does.
Yeah,
he does.
Beautiful eyes.
But it was like one of the great speeches at the Daly Ems, but it did go for quite a long time. But he thanked everyone in the organisation, which you very rarely hear in those sort of speeches. So we want it to go well for Todd.
He can coach, and I just think, like I said, and every club goes through it, and the Cowboys are going through it at the moment. I just think recruitment-wise, they're just losing Finny Fuiaki and then losing Helam Lukey to injury is not ideal. But I don't know what their plans are moving forward when it comes to recruitment. But I think they've got to get into the market, and they've got to be with Reece Robson going as well. They've got to be
See,
really
that's a
strong in
telling
the
loss
market.
for me, I reckon.
Massive,
Yeah,
huge,
that's
especially when you lose any
keep.
State of Origin game as well. So get involved in the show if you need to, 0457 736 736, or if you want to give us a call, 1300 01 1170. Let's get into Thursday night's game at Arcourse Stadium. Rabbitohs 28 defeated Panthers 18. I've got to say the Rabbitohs, they look quick, direct.
They
went very well.
I tell you what. So what's that?
Jai Gray.
They've won 3 of 4.
Yep.
Yeah, that's I bet after losing Latrell and Murray as they did in that training session during the off season, the fact that these are the wins you want to bank early on before Trelmett comes back and lights up the Rabbitohs.
Absolutely. Leota no try. Well, I think we all agree that. Well, I do.
my
I think
God.
95% agree it's a try.
But they gave that try to Jason Saab.
Yeah, a few weeks ago in the Warriors. Absolutely.
Come on, Bunker. Be better,
Unforced
Bunker.
errors.
Be better.
Wasn't a great night for Penrith, but as we know,
right.
they're one of the great sides. Hey, thanks to Winghouse, the best seats and beers, always guaranteed. Let's get to a break here on Saturday League Kickoff, and we're going to focus on the Saturday games.
30 seconds.
Yeah, this is Saturday League Kickoff. Scott Sattler, Andrew Webster here, and thanks to Winghouse, the best seats and beers, always guaranteed. After last night's match, if the rumours are true on the text line, the Roosters need more than DCE, Tynan says. But we have got some, before we get on to the Back to the Future and the Roosters, the scenario they're in.
Back to the Future?
Back to the Future. We're going back to look into the future.
We're going back into the future.
We're just jumping on the bandwagon about the DCE is going to go to the Roosters, and it's a fait accompli. But before we do that, and we've got a lot of all of our listeners as well saying, done deal, Roosters, whatever it may be. I think it is all speculation because he does hold a lot very close to his chest. We have got some judiciary charges out of the first 3 rounds. Games, I should say.
Out of last night's Broncos game, Jordan Ricky, he's been hit with a grade 2 careless. It's his second offence. Early plea 2 matches.
Really?
Three at the panel.
That was shoulder contact to the head,
on Jack Bostock.
Yes. It's not 2 weeks. We can't keep rubbing out players for careless.
And Tommy Gilbert, similar charge, grade 2, high tackle, careless, first offence, 1 match. That was on Katoni Staggs.
Okay. Katoni Staggs took a while to get up, actually. I don't think he left the field. I don't think HIO took him from the field. He stayed on the field, I think, Katoni Staggs, from memory. I may be wrong, but I remember the tackle, actually. But the one with Jordan Ricky, 2 weeks. I know during commentary last night they're saying one player makes contact and ricochets him onto Jordan Ricky. Now,
see, that's where it's tricky.
You do have to be...
For Ricky. But it is.
You're a poet and you didn't even know it. Now, you do have to bend your back. That is the argument. Bend your back. But if you don't think you're going to make the initial contact, you're standing to brace for contact if it does come your way.
Yeah.
And he goes onto the shoulder. It's not ideal, but it is careless. But we shouldn't have players missing 2 weeks for that.
You've got to protect the head.
Yeah.
I know, 100%, but this is the thing though. There's going to always be inconsequential. Sorry, not inconsequential. There's going to be like just natural, the way the tackle works.
Yep.
It's just some things just can't be avoided.
Yep.
And that was a great example of it.
Next 5 games for the Dolphins. They've started off poorly after the Broncos game last night. Those charges coming out of that. Titans away. Panthers at home, Storm at home, Raiders away, yuck. Roosters at Magic Round.
It's an easy draw, isn't it?
Oh.
That's tough.
What about Elbow calling an election on Magic Round weekend?
I know. I tell you what was even better.
Parent rugby
Elbow
league fan.
having to be briefed by South Sydney to discuss Reggie the Rabbit.
Exactly.
Rugby league, the greatest game of all.
Hey, let's get to the news now, and after that, we're going to look back at the 1999 Grand Final and today's games.
If you just compare me to Buzz Rocker, like Fanningham, that's defamatory.
He's one of your mates, Buzz.
But Buzz, when I worked, you know what? Even when I worked at the Telegraph, and even when I worked at the opposition paper that we shan't name, Buzz would call me and go, "Webby, how do I write this?" I ended up writing half of Buzz's column for him. He still does it. How do I write my sinner?
How do I push? When I want an email to go somewhere, what button do I push? Push send. You push send, Buzz.
Buzz and I went on a let's just say well-funded trip to Barcelona and then Manchester for the World Club Challenge when the Roosters were in it 2019. We got back early 2020, just as COVID struck. And I had to basically be Buzz's chaperone for the trip. Buzz is walking around Barcelona airport, doesn't speak a word of Spanish. Where do we go here? It's like, as one Roosters director called us, Steptoe and Sons.
Shut up, Buzz. Eat your paella.
Good on you, Buzz.
Yeah, exactly. So we won't have enough time. We are going to get to as many of your texts as possible, but I do believe the Roosters are going through exactly the same reincarnation they're trying to do.
That's right.
In 2017 when they brought Cooper Cronk to the club, and they just went, we're not going to try and do a slow rebuild, i.e. the Panthers and the Bulldogs. We want to catch and kill our own as soon as we can.
My theory on this is Nick Politis is in his early 80s. He's been the chairman of that club since 1993.
Yep.
There is no way in the world he's going to leave the club in a poor position. I reckon he would want a premiership before he bows out and hands it over to one of the many, many multi-millionaire directors at that club. So I'm completely on board with what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we love the history of the game. This is where we're going to focus on, the nostalgic piece of rugby league. And 1999, of course, was regarded as one of the great finishes to a grand final. I've got to say, I know you're a Dragons fan. To our Dragons fans out there, I apologise, but it also coincides with today's game. The Dragons up against the Storm at Jubilee Stadium. That's, of course, the one in Sydney, not the one in Wollongong. At 3 p.m. this afternoon, SEN League coverage starts from 2 p.m. That is daylight saving time, which finishes next Sunday morning. I cannot wait for that. Because the cows, you know that? Queensland doesn't have daylight saving because of the cows.
Really?
It disrupts the whole milk, apparently.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm not sure. Is that true?
Oh, it's a really annoying
0457 736 736. Stormy Daniel, you'll tell us.
It's very annoying in Sydney because you're walking around in the dark.
I know. Now, the 1999 grand final, of course, was the Dragons and the Melbourne Storm. Now, the Melbourne Storm were formed in 1998. A lot of people may not realise. In 97, the Hunter Mariners in Super League and the NRL coming together in 98, they went to the Gold Coast Chargers, who had made the finals in 97, and said, will you take on a large group of the Hunter Mariners teams, form a merger, and become whatever? And then the board, Paul Broughton, the chairman, still to this day, I don't know why he made this ridiculous decision, said, no, we're going to go on our own. So the Hunter Mariners went to this little place on the map called Melbourne and formed the Melbourne Storm in 1998. Won their first game against the Dragons in Wollongong, round one in 98. And then in 99, of course, was the first year. Brooksy, our producer, a mad Dragon supporter as well, was the first year of the merger between Illawarra and St George. Many thought it wasn't going to work. I remember reading stories about both sets of teams, players turning up at the first week of training and not really integrating.
Talking.
Were you around at that stage doing that merger?
I was I was still in the country, but I'd started my career in the Hunter Valley. So
the Maitland Mercury.
The Maitland Mercury, second oldest paper in the country behind the Herald.
There you go.
Which is a great grounding as a reporter, and it also, I covered the Knights when they won the comp in 97, but I also covered the Hunter Mariners. I've still got a Hunter Mariners tie somewhere, would you believe?
There was the Camorley brothers.
The Camorleys.
Scott Hill.
Robbie Ross.
Paul
Marquette.
Aaron Mule.
Yeah, there was a lot of
John Carlaw. There's a lot of great players.
Carlaw, that's right.
Richard Swain.
And they played. Where they played was in sort of at the west of Newcastle.
Yes.
And I remember the first game and the first try, and it's the first time they used the video ref. And I remember Steve Clark was a ref, and he goes, "Is this on? Is this on?"
It's a little bit like us on this show in the first hour.
It's a little bit like Saturday League. What's it called? Kickoff. Very similar. But it was like but it was funny though. At the end, as it was clear that the two comps were going to merge again in 1998, and it was a feeding frenzy of the Mariners to see where they were.
They made the World Club Challenge final, didn't they?
They did.
When they played the UK teams as well.
They did, but Melbourne got the best of them.
Yeah, exactly. And the rest was history. Well, the rest is history. 108,000 people at that game, Olympic Stadium. It's when it didn't have the closed-in ends. It was all open. Hugh Jackman sang the national anthem. What about that?
Did he?
Dragons led 14-0 at half-time. I then remember it became 14-2. And then it became 18-2 when Rod Wishart, wearing jersey number 15, I think, Brooksy. Was it 15? Yeah, thumbs up.
Good.
He tapped the ball back to Paul Mary McGregor to score to make it 18 points to 2. And then it all went downhill.
Why are we doing this? Like, fair dinkum.
Well, because they're playing each other today. So, the Dragons coaches was, of course, the co-coaches. Andrew Farah, Poppy Farah, one of the great guys, one of the great players. And David Waite, living up there on the Gold Coast as well.
Two very smart rugby men.
Yeah. So we know that in the end, it was the Storm that went on to win in very controversial fashion. But when you look at the footage, I think there was no other other way to decide that game or that try, I suppose, to Craig Smith. Jamie Ainscough, crossfield kick from Brett Noddy-Kamali. He saw that Jamie Ainscough had gone from his wing in behind the goalpost to look for a grubber, and he just put that nice little kick off the outside of his foot, Noddy, perfectly weighted, and Craig Smith got his head taken clean off his shoulders.
That's a bit of an exaggeration.
And Chris Ward made the right decision. I remember watching it and Glenn Lazarus running back to the group, and you could read his lips. It said, "It's a try." And everyone watching went, "Oh my God, what's happening here?" Craig Smith knocked out. Who had to take the kick a goal right in front? He was playing on the wing. He went into the 5/8 position. Scott Hill was injured.
Matt Guyer.
Matty Guyer.
Matty Guyer, that's right.
You talked to him about that. He said, "I couldn't feel my legs. I just couldn't. Even when it was right in front, I could have thrown it over with a door snake." He said, "I couldn't feel my legs."
He could have thrown it over with the door snake.
He could have used a door snake and hit it over. It was that easy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I'm a lifelong Dragons sufferer, so to be reliving this... You know what the hard thing was for Dragons fans is that we had lived through 85, 92, 93, 96, and then 99. And after that loss, I was like, this is just never going to happen. You know what, as a Dragons fan, the loss that hurt the most, though, was actually the preliminary final loss to the Tigers in 2005. We were humming then. We were humming.
It was always going to be a Dragons and Parramatta grand final that year.
It didn't happen.
Both lost in the prelims.
Yeah, it was very, very tragic. But we got it done in 2010 with Supercoach Bennett, so there was a happy ending.
Yeah.
But it was an epic grand final, and it's always in the back of everyone's minds when these two teams meet like they are at Cogra Jubilee this afternoon. I'm worried that I'm very interested to see what sort of Dragons team turns up. There's been a lot said about what happened against South Sydney a couple of weeks ago. They're coming off the bye, so hopefully Shane Flanagan has got them rolling against the Storm this afternoon. I suppose the only thing about Melbourne is just like they're coming off a huge win over Penrith in pretty much an epic
brutal
battle
game.
There, wasn't it? There a week ago. So
they looked a little bit. I know they had a long layoff for their game, Penrith. Or they go, oh no, they didn't have. No, it wasn't really. They looked. I thought they looked bruised.
Penrith looked tired.
They did, yeah.
What about the bash up of Penrith? They've lost 3 in a row, and this is the end of the dynasty. They've made the last 5 grand finals and won 4 of them. Like they've been up for a while. They've been up for a little while.
They got one of the greatest players we've seen in many, many years who were out injured, and they look like a completely different machine when he's playing as well.
And the Australian fullback.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's not like they're at full strength. Anyway, I just think all the narrative around Penrith and this is the end, and God, they've been.
I was actually trying
for a long time.
I was trying to find a text that I had saved earlier on in the show, and it was around the Dragons. Clint Gutherson, a question mark over him.
What do you mean?
It's for today's game.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, question mark over him for today's game.
Let me get onto the texts.
Get onto the text.
Let me start texting people.
Text your mates. Text Flano.
Actually,
2 losses to start the season. The Dragons Storm, 2 big wins to start the season. Of course, Tyron Wishart is going to play halfback against the club that his dad so proudly served as well, the Illawarra Steelers most notably. He's in for Jerome Hughes. Now, Jerome Hughes had surgery. They played Thursday night against Panthers, and he had the surgery Saturday morning. He's going to miss 2 games, Frankie Panisi is believing. I'm also led to believe that Ryan Pappenhausen was touch and go with ankle soreness. They'll always monitor him week in, week out, and he deserves that as well. Storm missing Nick Meaney as well. Now, Nelson Asafa-Solomona, I've got to say, this is, I suppose, and I was saying this during the work, Nelson Asafa-Solomona complained of dizziness after the game. Now,
is that the thing he had on his nose?
Yeah. He couldn't
too
breathe.
Much air into his...
Not enough air getting to his brain because of the thing on his nose.
Maybe that's it.
But in saying that, this
Maybe
is
too much air to his brain.
This is an insight into the modern player. And what I mean by that is, in years gone by, and this is by no means a slight on Nelson Asafa-Solomona, is that in years gone by, if you had dizziness or a bit of a headache after the game, you'd take a Panadol, you'd have a sleep, you go to rehab the next day, everything would be fine. You wouldn't say anything because of fear of missing a game.
No.
The great education that the NRL and around CTE and damage to the brain and the concussion protocols now, Nelson Asafa-Solomona reports it to the club. I've got a bit of dizziness. The club go, okay, you're now going to go into the protocols. He's going to miss this game because of that. And, well, the game and, more importantly, the player is going to be better off for it. What are you smiling at?
Shane Flanagan just got back to me.
Okay.
Yes, he is playing. Bad mail, Sats.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks for listening, Flano.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Flano. But we have got a text here. We the listeners are so engaged in in the game and our show that there was late mail that there may be some Dragons players out. So we'll know an hour before kickoff. As we said, our SEN League team will be covering that game today as well live. So can't wait for that. I've got to say, I like... Hey, Dragons, David Clemmer. I think that's a good pickup for them.
Absolutely.
Especially because of his maturity and his experience. And he's a big body as well. And the debutant, Dylan Egan, into the side. I've got to say, the Dragons are in this phase where fans have got to be a little bit more patient.
100%. Like, Shane Flanagan's in 1 month into his second year at the club. You can't expect, miracles overnight. I thought the rhetoric around what Flano had to say about Lachlan Ilias was ridiculous. I thought he was like such a sedate remark that he made in the press conference about him. I'm interested to see how both him and Cole play this afternoon against the competition.
My only thought behind that is that if Flano said it the way that he said it, that he knows the player, that the player will take that on board. He'll have an honest conversation, and it'll. DC to me seems to be the sort of player that can compartmentalise everything, move on from it. He can park it and go and play and not let it affect his game. I think if Flano said what he said last week, after that South game, that he knows Lockie Ellis well enough to say that this is a kid that will probably make a lot of people,
From what I'm told, Lockie Ilias is a lot stronger than what people give him credit for. So I'm interested to see how he responds this afternoon against the Storm.
Yep. Hey, let's get to a break here on Saturday League Kickoff. We'll go through the other Saturday games. You're listening to League Kickoff, Saturday Kickoff, the best seats and beers. That is Wing House, always guaranteed. We've got more of your text and plenty more. Yes, welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff, and that's it, nearly for the 2 hours. Before we do that, we are going to get into the rest of the Saturday games. Before I do that, we've had a lot of passion around DCE. We unfortunately don't have enough time to get to all the text messages. Crunch time coming up next. We can touch on that a little bit more then. But the Serbian Seagull says, boys, 51 years supporting Manly. As a working professional nearing the end of my working life, if a rival company offered me $1 million a year for 2 years and my company offered me $250 less per year, I know what I'm doing. Good luck to Ches. He's been a champion.
Well said.
And that's what we're seeing from a lot of the Manly fans.
I don't begrudge him at all. I think the way that he's done it's a little
I think it's sad. I think it's sad.
It's very sad that it's come to this.
Yep.
They don't seem to get... Breaking up in rugby league is never easy,
Someone wrote a song about that?
It is.
Yeah.
It's hard to do in rugby league. But you tell me, it very rarely ends well, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't.
But this one's been particularly messy, so no pun intended.
Make sure you keep, SEN listeners, make sure you keep the app rolling, or if you're in the car, keep listening, because in crunch time, Jai Arrow is going to join us after their win on Thursday night. Let's get stuck into these two other games. For what it's worth, I think the Dragons, they might get Melbourne today.
Really?
And just because of the weather.
I wish I could share your optimism.
Cowboys versus Raiders, 5:30, Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Winless first 3 games, the Cowboys. Raiders coming off a big thumping at the hands of Manly last week at Brookie. I've got to say, the first 25 minutes, they were really good, the Raiders. Corey Horsburgh gets sin-binned. It's a complete turnaround in the rhythm of the game.
To pine back in makes a big difference.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. And also, Toddy Payton's stuck with the same 17. So as a coach, he either doesn't have the depth, or he's just said to that team in round 1, whoever's been named, you're going to have X amount of weeks to get it right, because after that, I've got to start looking to others.
Is it raining up there?
It is raining. There's expecting a lot of rain coming from the west, expecting a lot of rain coming across the east coast.
It'll be a strange game, I think. You can see a lot of points scored.
Yeah, exactly. Just the Raiders. I love watching the Raiders, I've got to say. I just love it. I love how they drag teams into the trenches and just make you roll your sleeves up.
I don't mind the Cowboys when they're holding onto the ball.
Yeah.
They can look really good too.
That Jackson Purdue's he's a classy kid. Never really played centres. In Queensland Cup as a 17, 18-year-old, was playing in the halves and a bit of fullback. So he's handling a really tricky position, which I've got to say defensively is a tough position to play. So he's been, I think, their standout at the moment.
Sharks Dogs.
Yeah, Sharks Stadium.
That should be a cracker. I know the Dogs are missing Kickow and Burton, but we'll get a better feel for where they're at against a team like the Sharkies.
I could see a significant difference in the Bulldogs when Matt Burton went off in that game against the Titans.
It's crazy,
They were
wasn't it?
flying.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he goes down, takes all the air out of the side, and one of your key go-to guys, and then Kickow goes down as well, so you're losing two of those link players. It is a huge chink in the armour, but I just feel as though they lost their way. They lost their way.
Yes, they did. They did. Toby Rubinoff back for the Sharks.
Comes on the bench for Tommy Hazelton. He's withdrawn because of a back complaint as well. Sharks too strong.
You'd think so.
At home.
At home.
They looked quick last week.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. They're but like everything we're going to say about the Sharks this year, they'll be judged on what happens at the end of the year, not now.
On Thursday night, I was at Matty Johns' show, and we were talking about the Sharkies.
I saw.
I've got to say, do the Sharkies have that? If you want to be a premier, I use the word arrogant. You've got to have this. Got to have an arrogance about you.
100%. You need to be.
Are they still finding that?
You need to be pricks, really.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know. Do they have that?
I'm not sure. Well,
when they won the comp, they had a lot of that arrogance, you'd say.
New Zealand Tiger in Oz says, love to see if the Seagulls boo DCE when he scores a cracking try under the post in front of the hill.
It'll be a cheer, then a boo.
Winning cures everything.
It does.
Hey, thank you everyone, to our Fox League viewers who switched over to SEN and all the SEN listeners. Thank you very much for joining us on this Saturday. Thank you, Webby.
Thanks, Satts.
And SN League team are going to be coming up very soon, but Crunch Time's coming up now. Still myself and Webby on Crunch Time for a couple of segments, and Jai Arrow is going to join us about that win against the Panthers on Thursday night.